Okay, good afternoon, everybody. It is straight up at 1 o'clock, and I'd like to welcome you all to this very timely and important webinar. We got confirmation that the Supreme Court has just finished hearing oral arguments regarding the validity of the mandate. No decisions and no idea which way they're going to rule yet, but we are going to go ahead and press forward with this, with what is potentially a very, very important aspect of what we're going to have to deal with for the continued impact of COVID-19. My name is Bob Harnett. I am the Regional Employee Benefits Leader for USI Mid-Atlantic, and I'm happy to welcome you to this webinar. A couple of logistic things as we get started. We are recording this, and the recording will be available to everyone who registered shortly after we conclude today. And given the size, we have over close to 600 people who have registered for this today. And given the size of it, we're going to confine our questions to the chat box. You'll see the button down in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. And if you put your question in there, we will try to get to as many as time allows. And if there are questions that you have that we're not able to get to today, you can follow up with your USI representative who invited you to this session today, and they will be happy to answer any additional questions, as well as put you in touch with our partners here that I'll introduce to you in 1 second. Have the next slide, please. So allow me to just take 60 seconds to give those of you who may not be familiar with USI just a brief background on who we are and why we do things like this. USI is one of the largest brokers in the world, but we really focus on providing our services, which are Fortune 500 level services down to the local marketplace. We have 200 offices all across the country, about 7,500, close to 8,000 employees now, and we're a full-service brokerage operation, and that's especially relevant today, as this is an OSHA regulation that is impacting employee benefits. So it certainly impacts our commercial and P&C practice, as well as our employee benefit practice. And then we also provide personal risk services, some program services, as well as retirement consulting. And next slide, please. The way we do this is through our platform called the USI One Advantage. It's a proprietary analytic tool that takes advantage of all of the knowledge of our employees all across the country, as well as the intellectual capital of the solutions that we've presented to over 100,000 clients through our tenure, coupled with a network team of local and national experts that are available to on all aspects of our business in our local offices. And we bring it together with a consultative planning process that allows us to ensure we're always offering the best services to our clients and meeting their needs, whatever they might be. This is an example of this today. The mandate has been bouncing back and forth through lower courts and appellate courts. It's now just concluded the arguments at the Supreme Court level. So one way or the other, we're going to get a decision here. But it's important that all of our clients and our prospective clients have all the information that's available to them. And so we are fortunate today to have a couple of people from one of our business partners, Wellness Coaches. We have Justin Thomas, who is the Chief Operating Officer, who has a long and varied career in the area of corporate and individual wellness, along with, I'm sorry, I had a little blink on my screen there for a second, along with Teresa Lucido, who is the Executive Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer for Wellness Coaches. So without further delay, I'll turn it over to Justin, who will take us through the presentation today.
Appreciate it, and appreciate the partnership with USI. We've done business together for several years and look forward to continue partnership and look forward to offering these COVID solutions and providing as much information as what we know today of what the law states. As Bob said, it could change quickly, but we'll talk about what we know today and how to prepare your business with a couple different solutions to be prepared for the OSHA ETS. I'll quickly talk a little bit about wellness coaches. We'll make sure we level set on the ETS, and then I'll turn it over to Teresa to talk about the solutions that we have to offer. So, about wellness coaches, we were founded in 2002. We're based in Blue Bell, Pennsylvania, covering all 50 states. With our health and wellness services, we really focus on a personal human touch. Technology and services go a long way, but having a personal human touch and someone to speak to really helps with behavior change, and as well as helping people navigate the COVID-19 and OSHA ETS solutions. Today, we're focusing on 3 different solutions Wellness Coaches offers: technology and clinical services. Clinical services really cover all of our COVID solutions. We consider ourselves COVID-19 experts. We've done well over 1 million on-site COVID tests across the country. Our niche of being able to deliver services rapidly. Customers call us and say, I've had an outbreak, I need solutions in a week. We've been able to deploy on-site services throughout the country within 5 to 7 days to provide tests, as well as offering flu shots. We do vaccine services, so we come onto work sites and offer the COVID-19 vaccine as well. And then we'll talk about how we've learned and take our COVID-19 expertise and put together some solutions to help you navigate the OSHA ETS. So the OSHA ETS, as Bob said, this is what the best that we know today, that it can change, but we'll try to level set and keep it simple so that everybody understands what's the solution and how we can solve for that. So as of right now, starting January 10th, provisions must be prepared. So essentially, this gives us a starting date of when we need to start being prepared and knowing and creating a plan to implement at your sites to be prepared for the February 9th, where testing for the unvaccinated employees must occur. We're talking about your employees. Contractors, 1099s can be treated differently. These are for the employees that come onto this work site, and we'll talk a little bit about that further in the presentation. And then we'll talk about some of the penalties that OSHA has laid out today for those that are not compliant with the vaccine status and the weekly testing for the unvaccinated. We're pulling this information directly from OSHA, as you can see. We're grabbing screenshots right from OSHA. On wellnesscoachesusa.com, we've dedicated a page within our website for constant updates on the ETS. You can always visit our website and see what's the most updated news, that you have a single source solution. And obviously your USI representative is the perfect partner to help you navigate through this. In essence, this applies to all industries with greater than 100 employees. So remember, that's 100 employees where they're interacting with each other. If they're working from home, things like that, when they're not interacting with each other, you don't have to worry about that. But if you have 100 employees, you must have a plan in place and be prepared to discuss or report to OSHA if you were audited, to talk about how you are compliant or not compliant with their ETS. There are some places that are not covered, workplaces under, say, federal workforce task, right? So the federal government has some federal subcontractors broke out underneath them that are not covered under the ETS. We had a question today from one of the groups with USI about how to handle that with their federal contracts. Our suggestion is to work with your direct contract, the person that owns your federal contract and that you're providing employees to, and work with them directly. It could slightly change from federal contractor to federal contractor. So our best practice is talk directly to your contractor. We are FEMA's sole provider of on-site COVID testing, and that we see that those contracts, even sometimes by the state when we're doing our testing, might modify. So we work really close with our FEMA contract to make sure we understand what their needs are and how to be compliant with their needs. So our suggestion is to follow that, work directly with your contract holder. Healthcare workers sometimes may or may not be covered. Most of your healthcare providers are already providing services and keeping track of that, because the worst case scenario is you don't want to go to a healthcare provider and have COVID spread where you're going to get care. Employees not working are around the coworkers, so all the folks that are working from home, you don't need to worry about those people. They don't need to be tested or their vaccine status. It would be great to make sure that you still know their status, but you don't have to worry about their testing, because at some point they may come back to the work site. So if you're getting the vaccine status, we always suggest, let's make sure you know everybody's status, so that as your workforce might modify, you don't have to try to chase that down later on. You're prepared now for what the ever-changing workforce might become. So here's the key thing: you must have a plan in place. You must know what the vaccine status is. Often we get asked about HIPAA when it comes to vaccine status. So the status of a person's vaccine is not HIPAA protected. So the employer is able to collect and gather that information so they can know the status of who has their status, who's not. Collecting the card is great. Best practices here: when you're collecting the card, we can do that for you. Or if you have your own solution, a lot of people have already done that. Make sure you have a record of the card, the vaccine, and then the boosters. Right now, boosters aren't required for the OSHA ETS, but as we've seen, things are ever changing. So as long as you have the data around somebody's vaccine status, it's better to have that now and not have to worry about it later. So the more that you can gather on their vaccine status, the better. There are exemptions that different employers have around the vaccine status. That is each broken out by company. However, if they're exempt from the vaccine, they're still going to be required to be tested when they come into the work site. Proof of vaccination is one of the things I wanted to really notify here on this slide and bring that out. Our best practice, what we share, is get a photocopy of that vaccine status. That way it's verified, you have visual proof. Now, I know a lot of people have already done surveys. There's a lot of solutions in payroll providers to collect that status. That's fine to have that. Just best practices, if you can have a photo, then you have the actual proof and you know exactly what their status has. And if there's ever an auditing, it's an easier to trail to show that photo proof of the vaccine instead of a self-selected survey. So what do we do with those folks that are unvaccinated? So you've gone through your process, you've laid out a policy, you've gathered the vaccine status of all your employees. What we've seen in general, it's about 30% of the workforce is not vaccinated. For the customers that we're currently work with, that's the numbers we're seeing. Just if you haven't done a status check, the 30% is a good ballpark to be prepared to know who's vaccinated and who's not. In essence, to keep this simple, weekly testing. If you're unvaccinated and you're at the workforce, you must do weekly testing to provide information and know and track that in reporting, so that if you are audited, you can show a report of who's vaccinated, who's unvaccinated, and their weekly test, and then the results of those weekly tests. So having those things together gives you everything you need to provide an audit. When it comes to testing, there's really two types of testing, and Teresa's going to talk about our solutions in a little bit. It's on-site or over-the-counter at-home test kits. A lot of people like the over-the-counter test kits, and they are a great solution. The key piece to be compliant with the OSHA ETS is the over-the-counter test kits, the ones you can buy at Walgreens or that we supply, must be proctored. Some of our customers are using management to do that. One of the solutions we'll talk about is that we deliver the over-the-counter test solutions and do the proctoring for you. So it's really up to each company, but if you're using the over-the-counter solution, you're doing your weekly testing, that's great, but it still must be proctored. So observe the person taking the test and observe the actual results of those tests. That's the proctoring requirement. If you're non-compliant and you're audited, there's some hefty fines that OSHA is planning on leveling as of today. The first time, $13,000 per violation. So if you've done nothing at your work site, that could be almost per unvaccinated employee. That could get really expensive, not having solutions. Or if you repeat that violation, then that cost is going to continue to go up. So having a plan in place, and the cost that Teresa will show you in a little bit with our solutions, is much better and lower than having any of these penalties. So with that, I'll turn it over to Teresa to talk about our solutions and how we can help you with USI's partnership to provide a solution for your companies.
Okay, Justin, just before we do that, we've gotten a lot of questions about the logistics of covering employees. So why don't we take a pause there for a second and let's cover some of these questions, because
Sure, Bob, that'd be great.
there's quite a few of them here. So employees not around each other all the time, does this still affect the employer and the employee as far as compliance is concerned?
So that's a great question. So, for example, I'm working with a logistics company. It's a freight. They're moving LTL and over the haul trucking. The LTL guys that are in the office every day, even though they're not there for long periods of time, are doing the weekly testing, because even though they're not there around all the time, they're in the building around each other at least for several hours before they go back on the road. So if they're in and out of the facility and around coworkers, we feel that those should be tested. And then Bob, we can work with each client that has a specific question and talk about their unique logistics, right? Because every company is slightly different, and we can come up with a specific answer for each specific location.
Sure, that's great. We've had a number of questions, and this probably falls under that. We can address specific issues with specific people, but we have a number of questions about employees working remotely. How does it impact employees who are working remotely? Do you have, if employees are working remotely, but they meet with clients at another location, do they fall under the weekly testing? Maybe you could amplify on the remote work aspect.
Great question. Those are great questions. So the remote employees do not need to have weekly testing. So if they're working at home, you have a sales force, you have IT folks, or you've decided not to return your employees to your work site and everybody's working from home, they do not need to be weekly tested. Now, when they go to the work site and they're visiting a customer, they're making a sales call, they're not going to be required to do the weekly testing because they're interacting. But what we have found is you need to contact that work site where they're going and see what their requirements are for your employees to enter that work site. Most often, that person will need to be tested or show proof of vaccine before they're allowed into another company's work site. But that's going to be case by case depending on that company's policies.
Okay. Just a couple more and then we can move on. So it sounds like the parent company is the one that's driving it. So if the parent company has 100 employees, for example, but they're spread across the country in multiple offices, do they fall under the mandate or do they not?
Yes, if it's 100 people on payroll, that is the parent company would make them required. And if, let's say, you have locations of 20 people a pop at each of those locations, then those folks that are in that 20 pocket that's unvaccinated would be required for weekly testing.
Okay, and what about an organization that has 100 employees in the United States and 2,000 employees overseas? Does it just apply to the 100 employees, or does it apply to the entire population?
The U.S. population.
This is one. You guys are asking a lot of really detailed questions. What's the definition of fully vaccinated here now? Is it 2 shots or is it 3? Are we getting off of the idea of 2 shots and a booster is fully vaccinated, or is it 2 shots?
So for Moderna and Pfizer, it's 2 shots plus 2 weeks post the second shot. So that is fully vaccinated. With Johnson and Johnson, it's 2 weeks past the 1 shot. So those 3 to be considered fully vaccinated. For Moderna and Pfizer, it's 2 shots plus the 2 weeks. For Johnson and Johnson, it's 2 weeks after the initial. Right now, on OSHA's website, on the ETS rules, boosters are not applied to this.
Okay.
Now, there are some new vaccines coming out. Those aren't even updated on the OSHA ETS yet. For example, Merck's launching the pill. Not even really sure yet today how that applies to the OSHA ETS. That's using our website would be a great place to get those resources. So as soon as OSHA updates for the new vaccines that are coming out, we'll launch that information on our website and how that affects with the ETS.
Okay. All right. I'm really trying to get to all of these, but some of them overlap pretty significantly. So certainly, if there's a question that we don't get to, please send it to your USI rep, and we'll get it answered for you. Why don't we go ahead and move into the Teresa part of the presentation, and then we can circle back to some of these at the end.
Awesome. Thanks, Bob. And I would say our goal is to respond to all questions by Monday at the latest. So Monday, the best we can. Hopefully we've answered the questions in general. But again, work with your USI representative. They'll contact us. And then my team, there's more of us than just Teresa and myself supporting the logistics for USI. We have an entire team dedicated to ensure that we provide great resources because of USI's great partnership. So we'll get answers to you.
Very good.
Great. Thank you. From here, we want to go into what some of the specifics are around the various ways your company can not just master the mandate requirements, but also any company policy that you may have, return to work requirements, if you're hosting events, or just in general, if your employee population is looking for a way to have some improved business health in the interim before the mandate goes into place. So for example, we said right now the CDC calls fully vaccinated 2 shots if it's Moderna or Pfizer. If your company chooses to have policy that requires the booster, that's available to be captured also. So there is a difference between what your company policy states and the mandate right now. So a few things. Most importantly is there are several different parts of a solution, and there are many ways to layer the solutions into one comprehensive package. And the comprehensive package is intended to really satisfy the mandate and then kind of pick apart the things that you may need otherwise. So the first we want to talk about is kind of the all-in-one place where vaccine verification records and testing records are held in a digital solution. Think of it as an app or an online manner in which your employees upload their vaccine records. There's a real-time dashboard where you can see the uploads, you can see the administration rights about whether testing has taken place, if testing is required. As you know, if they're not vaccinated or they have an exemption, they must be tested. We have the ability to provide a turnkey way to supply over-the-counter test kits to your population. And in the same app, they would be have the opportunity to call into a proctor 24/7 on demand, have their results completely uploaded into the app. And then from your end, you get to see everything that's transpiring on a real-time basis. So to repeat something Justin said, vaccination status is not HIPAA protected. An employer can ask that, no penalty. However, test results are considered medical records and test results are HIPAA protected. So the digital solution that captures the vaccine verification and the over-the-counter test kit proctoring is in one place, and then you would have access to all of that data, not a specific test result. That's something the employee reports to you or their manager just as in a normal basis. But we're going to show you a little bit about that platform and how it works. Irrespective of the mandate, we have a lot of companies right now who want test kits. You know, they're hard to get. They're available over the counter. We can transact them for you in about a week time to fulfill. There are some supply chain issues, you guys, that what you've been reading about in the consumer world applies for wholesale as well. But we have a really good line with several manufacturers, and we are fulfilling requests from like 300 all the way up in literally the tens of thousands for companies all over the country right now. The at-home test kits are available without any of the other solutions if that's something that your clients or yourself want to procure right now, or they want to procure in anticipation of the mandate. Another solution for testing is on-site testing. So even though the mandate allows over-the-counter at-home tests, there are large groups of employees in a single location, on-site testing could still be an opportunity. Since day one of pandemic, literally in March of 2020, we've been out there doing on-site testing for employers, for events. It's complete turnkey. The nursing staff comes in, they take care of all the registration, they take care of the PPE, they've got the reporting for the federal and state requirements and the CDC, and there's biohazard waste removal. The employee gets their results via email. It's a fantastic solution. and it's all available from us without the mandate. And finally, event planning. Whether your organization has a corporate meeting coming up, you have a trade show that you're going to be exhibiting at, or you're going to be hosting a meeting and you need a lot of people in the office who would not otherwise need to be tested, we can provide those on-site testing opportunities for you or vaccine verification in advance. I did see one question pop up about the mandate about who pays for all the testing. OSHA and the ETS do not specify that the employer is required to pay for the testing. However, we'll tell you that I can't imagine, Justin, of all the companies we're talking with, I don't know one who is not providing that. The exception would be companies that are allowing their employees to go to a local lab or a pharmacy, I should say, and grab their test and then upload it. That is on the employer, and that's through their insurance, on the employee, excuse me. So right now it is 100% being covered in most instances by the companies. So this just shows you everything that's available, how it can be layered or how it can be built in comprehensively. So let's talk a little bit on the next slide about how our partnership with the data platform called Proven works. I mentioned that there's an opportunity for an app that captures everything, the vaccine verification, the at-home testing. We selected a partner, Proven Pass. You can actually go right now on the Android or Apple App Store and download Proven Pass for consumers. It's a way anybody can upload their vaccine card right now if you need to show it at a restaurant or you need to show it at an airline, whatever it is. But we have co-created with them a solution for the workforce, specifically for the compliance of the OSHA mandate that keeps everything in one place, all of the available reporting for audit capabilities. You are also not required as an employer to send any records to OSHA. You just have to maintain the records and be available in a minute in the event that you get audited and those fines come into play. So Proven has worked with us on this entire solution. If you look at the next page, you'll see, not unusual, what you've seen in many other apps that are providing. Some of your states right now may require this vaccine verification. So it's very intuitive to use. It's easy. The employee uploads their vaccine card, their ID, in about literally like 42 seconds. And then the ability to interact with scheduling your test, if it's an on-site test, if it's an over-the-counter test, and be proctored right through your phone, and the results are recorded right there. So there's their participant experience, which is seamless. You get to see everything. You've got your records. You can use it elsewhere, your weekly tests. And then as an administrator, you have access to all the back end. The way the solution works is you'll see in our pricing, it's a flat PEPM that includes everything. It includes mailing test kits to people's houses. It includes their proctoring, and it includes all the technology to support the platform. Again, HIPAA compliance is relative to the personal information that's being included. So we talked a little bit about security.
So, Teresa, if we could just take a pause there. We've gotten a number of questions about proctoring and how that works.
Sure.
Maybe you could go into a little more detail on. There's a lot of very suspicious people on our webinar today, and so the call-in aspect, who has to proctor, what's all involved with that would be helpful, I think, at this point.
Yeah, sure. This comes up a lot. And in fact, there are two different ways you can handle proctoring. It can be through the app, or if you secure home tests on your own, there's another solution just for proctoring. But the proctoring process in general through Proven works like this. Think of it populations that are shift workers, that are 24/7 operations. That's the decision to have proctoring available on demand. It's like telehealth. You get a phone number, you dial in, you wait in a waiting room, maybe 10, 15 minutes, and then you're prompted into a room. The proctoring is visual eyes. There's a human who makes sure you're swabbing yourself and not, a dog or someone else, and everything is visible via camera. And the results are shown, and there's a QR code in every test to the person administering the proctoring. They record it, not the participant, and they capture it, and it's in the record, and it's done. There are opportunities to proctor in person. Let's say you have a large group of employees and you want to say, okay, on Wednesdays, 50 people in the conference room between 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock, and you can have personalized proctoring also that your company can conduct. OSHA does not, at this time, to the best of our knowledge and interpretation, dictate who has to be the proctor. It can be a manager at a company. It doesn't have to be a healthcare professional proctoring the over-the-counter. Those results, again, are kept private. The employee would have the responsibility to tell you of a positive result based on that being a medical record. There are some one-on-one or group proctoring settings that are available. Obviously, it takes 15 minutes for a test to develop. So if it's one-on-one, you have one person on the other end of the video cam who can only do so many at once, or you'd have, which is a higher cost, of course, than if you have the group proctoring where they can probably do up to 6 or 8 at any given time. Justin, did I miss anything on the proctoring you'd add?
No, I think the key thing when we do the group is that participants can't see each other. They can only see the proctor.
Oh, yes.
Right? So we're not sharing it around and you're seeing that. You only see your proctor, but your proctor's leading a group of folks. I know there's some questions about the HIPAA piece when it comes to proctoring. When you're signing up for the app, there is a waiver form that they're going to notify your employer that we're sharing this information. So even though it's HIPAA protected information, there's a waiver that they're signing, just like you would sign at your physician, that they're sharing that data with the carrier or whatever. There's a HIPAA release form that you're going to sign as the employee saying that I'm sharing these results with my employer. And that's how we're able to share the positive results for the employer. And then on our back end, we keep it all HIPAA secured. HITRUST is one of the best ways to certify through third parties that we're a HIPAA protected software and our security and backup measures are compliant with HIPAA protocols. The only thing I would say, Teresa, as well, as of today, now depending on the volume of things, as of today, our waiting rooms are under 5 minutes for people to get sessions. If 30% of the entire world has to go into proctoring, it could be very interesting in the United States what the volume will have to be. But as of today, we're less than 5 minutes in the waiting room to get your proctor.
All of the credentials to address the security issue that you see here have passed extremely high standards. We have been on one call, and we understand, that an HR or benefits professional probably is going to need to bring in an IT person, a cybersecurity person. There's certainly going to be questions. Legal people. We have passed with flying colors every issue of any IT security. And to give you some idea, this moves into the kinds of industries. I won't go through all these names. So no matter what the population size is, 500, 1,000, all the way up in the tens of thousands, we're working with them in some capacity or proven has. So besides the app, let's talk a little bit specifically about the at-home test kit. So outside of the all-in-one solution of vaccine verification, at-home test kits, proctoring, record keeping in one place. At-home test kits are available right now. This is probably one of the most highest demand things since coming back after the first of the year, thanks to Omicron and more. So our warehousing, inventory, and fulfillment facility is up and running. We have a constant flow of tests coming in and out. It is a supply and demand business. We are doing our best to keep prices low and to keep transactions rapid. This doesn't require an MSA. This requires just talking to your USI person and saying, hey, I need to find some test kits that come to Wellness Coaches. We fulfill them for you. Super easy transaction. Just so you know, the current highest volume that's available are the ACON FlowFlex tests. Those are the 1 test per box kits. All the others are 2. And again, because the government's going to be supplying like 500 million across the country, some of the supply is being interrupted right now, but we feel real confident in our sources that we can continue to provide that. Outside of at-home test kits, the on-site testing on the next slide remains a very important part of business practices today. I mentioned several use cases for there. There are two ways that on-site testing can be performed. Obviously, the first and most common is the rapid antigen test. We bring the equipment right on site. The nursing staff takes care of everything from start to finish. And then people ask all the time, what if somebody's positive? We do confirmatory PCR molecular testing right on site. The person who's positive gets isolated, they do the PCR test, and then a determination is made whether or not they stay in the workforce or go home based on that result. Again, that's 100% turnkey. There's a labor cost of the nursing staff, and then there's the supply cost based on consumption, and you're in and out as quickly as possible. This can be conducted routinely, whether it's mandate or company policy or for special events, as we mentioned. And speaking of things like special events, just to give you some frame of reference, Justin mentioned us working with FEMA. We've worked with everything from the White House and major conventions all the way down to weddings, literally, where we have done vaccine verification or on-site testing. So all available for you as quickly. Some things can be deployed in 72 hours, like you need on-site testing or you have an outbreak and you need somebody there to help with that. We've got that, all the way up to the implementation of the app and the digital solution, which takes obviously a little bit longer, a few weeks. So with that, we wanted to share what the current pricing schematic looks like on these solutions that through our partnership with USI, we're real pleased to offer to you. So I mentioned first the digital solution, and for the weekly provision of over-the-counter test kits, proctoring, and the software, that part of the solution is on a PEPM model, and this $95 per employee per month is the price that we're happy to provide to USI customers. Outside of the mandate, the on-site testing is still happening. We've got an event, in fact, this weekend where it's happening at. There is a cost for the nursing labor, the healthcare professional labor, that depending on your location, we would secure for you. And then the test cost that you see here, you pay on consumption. Let's say you think 150 people are going to show up and 120 do. We bring the supplies and you pay for what you use. So that's the on-site rapid testing at $49 per test, all inclusive of what I mentioned with the PPE and the biohazard waste removal, et cetera. And then if there's confirmatory. The confirmatory test takes about 30 minutes. So we bring in a special piece of equipment that does the diagnostic right there after a rapid positive. People always ask, what should I be prepared for? Our general experience right now is when we do events or we do on-site testing, maybe 1% show a positive. And I don't think to date we've had any false positives. I think they've all moved right into the positive confirmatory. But just if you need to think about logistics on how you would isolate someone. Now, over-the-counter test kits are available. It'd be hard for us right now to quote you what's going to be available in 3 weeks. We know we've got some ACONs in large quantity to go out next week. So depending on the test kits, if you needed some planning prices, I would work with this $14 to $28 per kit, depending if there's one test or two kits or two. They come in cases, they come in pallets. We can send them to single locations. We can send them to multiple locations. And the last piece is, let's say irrespective of the mandate, or you want to get a jump start right now, we can just start verifying the vaccinated status of your population, which is a one-time charge per employee of $15 per case where they upload their card and we verify it. Now, of course, all of this can be customized. We'd want to look at each individual case. We'd want to understand the complexity that you had, how simple we could, turn something around for you. I'm happy to work with you guys. So really what we do next is say lots of opportunities to work together in partnership with USI. If the app and the digital solution sounds like something you're going to pursue for the mandate, we can demo that within 48 hours. And then we just get you started right after there if it's about the mandate or the custom solution. So I'm a little bit of extra time, so we'll turn it back over to you guys. Tell us how we can help.
So Justin, it's Chuck. There are some questions around the PEPM, the per employee per month monthly charge. And can you just talk about the vaccinated versus unvaccinated status, and that it is monthly, not a weekly charge?
Correct. So for the all-in-one solution, the $95, that is for your unvaccinated population only, and that is a per employee per month cost. So let's say you have 100 people, 30 of them are unvaccinated and need weekly testing, and you're going to use the all-in-one solution. Those 30 people, we would charge you the $95. For just those 30, the other 70, there is no charge if you're doing the all-in-one solution. So it's just for the unvaccinated folks for that one model. And as a reminder, that includes shipping, proctoring, reporting, all in one, everything you need. And then your audit log, if you're ever audited, is there for you as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Justin. A couple of questions. Somebody asked the quantities and the brands that vary according to the test kits and what's included in the kit.
Sure. So as Teresa mentioned, the government they're buying around 500 million test kits. To be prepared for the OSHA ETS, we're sourcing every test kit possible so that we can fulfill the need. So we're working directly with Abbott, working directly with Quidel, working directly with BD, and working directly with Acon, as well as some other suppliers for other tests as well. In the test kit, the Acon, which is the one we have the most supply of today, is a single test kit. It's the only one that's FDA EUA approved for single test. So in that is everything you need. It's the it's the swab. There's a little bit of solution. There's a cartridge, and each one of these have detailed instructions. Many of them even have a little QR code you can scan, and on your phone it will take you through how to take this test step by step. For the Abbott, I actually have one in my office today. If everybody can see myself, you have the test. Inside that test are two tests. So the BDs, Quidels, and Abbotts, there are two tests in each box. And again, it has the solution, the swab, the readers. It's all in there, as well as the instructions.
And then, Justin, the results are 15 minutes, correct?
Correct. No more than 15 minutes. Yeah, the Abbott's 15. I think the Quidel's 12. I think Acon's around 10. Care Start, I think Care Start's 10 minutes as well, the on-go Care Starts. So each test is slightly different, but no greater than 15 minutes, and you have your results immediately.
And of all those brands Justin mentioned, the expiration dates vary based on production, anywhere between 6 and 12 months.
Yeah, great point. Everything we're providing right now doesn't expire until the fall. And that's just because that's when they're coming to us, right? And then that extension or that expiration date will extend as we go throughout the year.
Justin, also important to note the head count of 100 employees or more as to when does that start? In other words, when's the snapshot of the head count?
Yeah, great question. It was November 5th. So what your head count was on November 5th is your head count for the OSHA ETS. Now, our feeling is that could change, especially how things shake out with the Supreme Court. But as of today, it was your head count on November 5th.
And Justin, is there a contract length that you're looking for this?
With the $95 all-in-one solution for the OSHA ETS, we ask for a 3-month commitment to cover you for the first 3 months, and then it goes to month after that.
And if you compare the cost for the percentage of employees that you have that are unvaccinated versus the potential cost on a per violation basis, it would seem that the ROI is pretty significant for this entire process. We got a lot of very specific questions regarding some variations in state regulations relative to testing and relative to the vaccine requirements and the testing requirements and the process and all. And I think that those might be better addressed on an individual basis when we move forward, because there's also some legal considerations there that I don't know about you. I'm not an attorney, and I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn last night, so I'm kind of out to out in the pasture on that. I think we have covered a lot of the questions. The volume of questions that Chuck and I are trying to manage here was a little bit overwhelming for a 45-minute presentation, but that just shows what a really a difficult task we're all faced with, and it certainly seems like Wellness Coaches has a very nice turnkey solution for us to be able to address this and be in compliance with it. So from a next step standpoint, if you'd like a demo of the solution of the app, or have some specific questions that we can help you build a custom solution around with, please get in touch with your USI representative, and they will follow up. Also, if you have a question that you didn't hear the answer to, please go ahead and submit it in that way, and we will. So somebody just asked the question: what's the implementation time frame?
2 to 4 weeks is the quickest for the out-of-box solution. We can customize the solution. If there's a ton of customizations, it could take longer depending on the customization. But if you're buying the out-of-box solution and don't need it, it's just going to work the way that we've discussed today, then it's 2 to 4 weeks.
And test kits can be fulfilled within 1 week?
Correct. Yep.
And on-site clinics can usually be stood up between 72, let's call it 3 or 4 business days, no problem.
Right.
Teresa, can you address the on-site clinics? A question came up about the on-site clinics and the cost of an on-site clinic.
Yeah, I can take that. So in the greater Philadelphia area, because that's where we're based and have the lion's share of our staff, the on-site clinics are $49 per person tested. All in, that's the cost. And then if you want the confirmatory PCR test, I believe, Teresa, we had 125 on our slide for the confirmatory PCR test.
Yes.
And again, typically it's about 1% of the folks that we test need the confirmatory test. So to give you a ballpark, the idea, how many we test, about 1% will need a confirmatory. That's $49. When it's outside of the greater Philadelphia area, it's what we break it up into a lower cost for the test and then a staff cost, because we have to be compliant, place a nurse at every site that we're doing the testing, and then other staff members. We always send at a minimum 2 staff members to make sure that we can run a successful on-site clinic. Each nurse can test around 4 folks an hour. So we broadcast that out. That's how we do a logistics game of understanding how much staff to send on site, how many hours do we need to be there, how many folks do you want to get tested. We customize our solution and how many staff we bring and the times based on each customer's needs.
And Justin, there is a discount for the folks that are attending because of the USI relationship off of your normal price, correct?
Absolutely. Everything that we're talking about is already discounted. If you came to us directly, not through USI, your price would be higher.
Bob?
So a couple people just asked some questions at the end here, and it was kind of an interesting one that I think we need to clarify. It's a company that has 100 employees, that has a in-office crew and people working outdoors. It's all of the employees, regardless of inside, outside, remote. If it's 100 employees, they're required to test if they're unvaccinated. Is that correct?
Mainly, so the employees that are outside, this is where you get there's a little bit of nuance. So understanding the folks that are outside that never come into the building would not be tested. But because you have 100 in total, if any of those people that are inside, they would need to be vaccinated. So it wouldn't be broken up. You can't say I have 100 employees, but 80 work outside and only 20 work inside. So my count's really 20. Now your count's 100. But if the folks that are outside never come inside a building, they wouldn't need to be weekly tested. But any of the folks that are inside the building, those folks would need to be weekly tested.
So another question, Justin, and you and I have discussed this. A lot of folks are asking about all of the questions that are in the chat room. Can they be answered? And then we send out something to address all of the questions. And I think we can work together. USI and Wellness Coaches can work together to make sure that we get all of these answered and get them out to everyone.
Yes, absolutely.
Along with a recording and a copy of this deck.
Yep.
We're happy to share with that. Just logistically, it'll just take us a day or so to get all that together and get it out to everybody who registered for this. So with that, I think we've reached the end of our presentation. It certainly looks like from the questions that we could sit here and talk about this for the next several hours. But I would encourage you all, when you get the deck, and your USI representative will be reaching out to you if something occurs to you, or if you have a question that isn't answered. Really, the best way a next step would be to reach out to us, schedule a demo, have us start to look at this from building a customized solution for you, and we can answer all of the specific questions, including all of the state questions that have popped up here on a case-by-case basis. So really want to thank Justin and Teresa for their time today. Very, very complex issue, and a great solution at a good cost relative to the potential penalties that are here. And we will certainly keep everybody informed as the Supreme Court makes their decision, but it certainly looks like something that we're all going to have to deal with. So appreciate all of your time this afternoon. Great questions from everybody on the call, and thank you again, Justin and Teresa, and everybody have a great weekend. We'll talk to you all soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.